I'm Charlie Holm. I've been with Windsor Mill now for 31 years. And today we are grinding one of our patterns out of our collection. It's a CS005. And it's a fairly complex pattern. It's a time-consuming one to grind. On the pattern, there's several square angles, which we take great pride in keeping them absolutely square. So you get the shadow lines as the sun casts on it and everything. And it takes quite a bit of time right here on this grinder. What makes it difficult is right in here you have these square points which generate heat, and then they tend to break down the cutter faster. Heat generates dullness. It just starts eating away at the metal the hotter it gets, and by doing it this way it creates a little more work for us as a company, but the customer wins by having these nice precise square edges. The template is done in reverse of your wood pattern, so you can see right here that is perfectly opposite of what the wood's going to turn out like. Yeah, the square sections are right here, and right here on this particular pattern, and then there's another one right here where that blob of grease is right there. This stylus pin is a 2mm stylus pin, and that's what I'm using right there is a 2mm wheel. We're working with a semicircular wheel right now, but when we get into finalizing these squares, I will have to put a square stylus pin on and then put a perfectly square wheel in. And then when we're all finished, then we'll put it on an electronic measuring stand, which is behind me over here. And then we'll check our squares to make sure that they're absolutely precise. Okay, this right here is one of our finger joint cutter heads. This particular cutter head here is it's a 10, they call it a 10 bolt head, which means that it has 10 racks of knives all cutting at the same time as the blocks pass through it on the finger joint machine. These are completely balanced. Every row weighs exactly the same, so that when we put this on the machine, it runs completely harmonic. So you get an absolute fine cut for better glue adhesion and then a better joint quality. This particular setup stand that we're using right here, this is a 10-post stand. This way we can loosen them all up and we can pull them to post all at the same time. It keeps the radial exactly the same so that it cuts right where the lug is, so you get reduced tear out. To make this work, we have a finger joint grinder. This is the head that cuts the female joint to the male head we were just looking at on the setup stand. You put it on here, and then all of our heads are hydro-locking cutter heads. The way they're constructed, it has a hollow chamber inside here. So then when you pump the grease in, it spreads the grease equally around the whole thing so that it grabs the head exactly perfect, so that the head can spin on a perfect cutting plane. There it is, 6,000 psi. And that's a release. Now do a test pass and dial the wheel in. This grinder right here is our straight knife grinder. It strikes the wheel at a different angle than one of the profile grinders that we were just going over in our other tool room. what's happening here is it's completely water cooled. It has a water jet that comes up through the bottom, and then there's also a water jet right here. There's two streams of water that are spraying right where it's cutting. Inside this enclosure right here is a wheel that looks just like this one right here, and that way you set your angle what you want, and it puts a perfectly straight angle without getting a concave angle like a profile grinder would. The wheel actually is striking just like this, but down there, exactly about like that. Every spindle on every machine, including the grinder, grabs the cutter heads at a slightly different angle. So how this grinder does and just how fine it is, it could still be a 1/2,000th off. So what the planer has to do, it has a joiner stone, which actually it has a big linear servo like that comes across it, and the stone actually touches the knives while the head out there is spinning at 6,000 RPMs. And it puts this, is what they call a joint line. You want your joint line as fine as possible, but you want that stone, after the head is pumped up and secured on the spindle, you want that stone to hit every single tip of every knife. That way when the wood is traveling through at high speed, then you get exact knife marks per inch, and you don't get a chattery or a wavy finish. You have a nice smooth finish. This particular angle right here is from the grinder. We have it set at a certain degree, and we always grind them exactly the same. So when the head is spinning out on the planer and you run your joiner stone across it, it's actually squaring it off ever so slightly, but hitting all of the knives consistent so that they all strike the wood at exactly the same time. So technically it has two little angles here. It's got the grind angle going this way, and then it has the heel going this way. The wider you run the heel, the more apt you are to get raised grain or tear out. It's basically dull. It creates, the bigger the heel, the more horsepower it takes to do the cutting, and then it turns from a fine cutting planer basically to a hog. And we keep it as a fine cutting planer. You can clearly see that this piece of wood was planed with an extremely sharp cutter head. It's laser smooth.
Hi, my name's Jeremy, and I'm going to run S1S2E on the planer.